On January 12, 1975, in Tulane Stadium, New Orleans, the Minnesota Vikings took part in their second consecutive Super Bowl game and their third in the past 6 years. As champions of the National Football Conference, they were prepared in every way possible. But as Coach Bud Grant has often said, one thing you can't coach is the bounce of the football. And against the AFC champion Pittsburgh Steelers, every score was the direct result of an eccentric bounce of the football. Late in the fourth quarter, an apparent Minnesota fumble recovery was ruled after the whistle, and the Pittsburgh Steelers then went on to score the championship-clinching touchdown. A touchdown almost too painful to endure, especially for the Vikings, who had been there the longest. But to a man, each member of the team had every right to be proud of himself and an extraordinarily successful championship season. The Vikings' 1974 season opened in Green Bay, where Coach Bud Grant saw his team demonstrate early strength in every area. The offense was keyed by 1973 Rookie of the Year Chuck Foreman, who began his season with 3 touchdowns against the arch-rival Packers. The defense was up to its old tricks with 4 turnovers, 2 of them interceptions by cornerback Nate Wright. And the special teams came up with big plays, too, as the Vikings got off to a rousing start by beating Green Bay for the 11th time in 13 tries, 32-17. The second week found the Vikings in Detroit, where the Minnesota defense played what Bud Grant called one of the best games it has ever played. While the defense was holding the Lions to just 9 first downs and no touchdowns, Fran Tarkenton and the offense did all the rest that was needed to produce a 7-6 victory, Minnesota's 13th straight over Detroit. The season's third week brought the Vikings home opener and their third consecutive Central Division opponent, the Chicago Bears. Again, Fran Tarkenton and the offense did just enough. And this time, the key man was tight end Stu Voigt. The Vikings won 11-7, and Fran Tarkenton passed another milestone in his amazing career. Week 4 brought a rematch of the previous year's NFC Championship game in Dallas, and the Cowboys took an early lead with the first touchdown pass of the season against the Vikings. Fran Tarkenton fought fire with fire, and once again the man of the hour was number 44, Chuck Foreman. As was becoming his custom, Chuck Foreman led the Vikings in both rushing and receiving, and against Dallas accounted for more than 200 yards and 2 more touchdowns. It was almost not enough. But let's hear how Joe McConnell of the Vikings radio network reported it.
Well, here we go. Krause will hold from the 17. A 27-yard attempt. The ball is down. The kick is up. It is good. Oh, a late signal. A late signal. Apparently, it was very close to the right upright. Wow.
Fred Cox's field goal with just 1 second left gave the Vikings their 4th straight victory. And then it was back home for one of the greatest offensive shows of the NFL season. Against the Houston Oilers, Chuck Foreman scored 2 more touchdowns. Fran Tarkenton hit on 18 of 24 passes and 3 touchdowns, including one of 80 yards to John Gilliam, as the Vikings rolled up more than 500 yards of total offense and the most points of the entire NFL season. Minnesota crushed Houston 51-10, and after 5 straight victories, it looked as though the division title might be wrapped up even before Viking weather arrived. And who wouldn't be welcome after you've beaten them 13 straight times? In the first meeting, Chuck Foreman had scored the game's only touchdown. And now, in the rematch, Foreman scored 2 more touchdowns to bring his league-leading total to 10 in the first 6 games. This time, the frustrated Lions came roaring back and defeated the Vikings for the first time in 14 tries, 20-16. Next up were the surprising New England Patriots, who, like the Vikings, were 5-1 and just coming off their first loss of the season. Jim Plunkett gunned the Patriots to a 10-0 halftime lead. Fran Tarkenton brought the Vikings back with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns and a 14-10 lead, which held up until the game's final seconds. After 2 straight defeats, it was on to Chicago for the rematch with the Bears. Fran Tarkenton threw for 2 touchdowns despite rain and the worst wind conditions he had seen in 6 or 7 seasons. The defense came up with another great game and earned a well-deserved shutout as the Vikings rolled past the Bears for the 10th time in their last 12 tries, 17-0. Week 9 found the Vikings in St. Louis for a Monday night encounter with the league's hottest team, the Cardinals, and Jim Hart, the NFC's hottest passer. St. Louis led at the half 17-14, but 3 turnovers set up the Minnesota ground game, and that was the difference between the 2 highest scoring teams in the conference. The top rushing quarterback in pro football history delivered the clinching touchdown in a 28-24 victory. And after 9 weeks, the Vikings led the Central Division by 3 full games. But as Bud Grant warned, it was still no time to relax. In the rematch with Green Bay, John Hadle was a new threat for the Packers. But the game's first touchdown came on a fourth-quarter Fran Tarkenton to Chuck Foreman touchdown pass. With just 3.5 minutes to play, John Hadle beat a Viking blitz, and MacArthur Lane delivered the crushing blow for the Packers. Pro football has no fiercer rivalry than that between Green Bay and Minnesota, whose series was now dead even with 14 victories apiece. The next week in Los Angeles, the NFL's largest crowd in 15 years saw the Vikings go for their 6th straight over the defense-minded Rams. The leader in both rushing and receiving was again Chuck Foreman, who scored his 15th touchdown in the season's 11th game. But it all ended with James Harris completing 10 straight passes, and the Vikings lost their fourth in 6 games, 20-17. For Bud Grant's Vikings, it was time for the final push. From the most specialized of the special team members through the entire 47-man roster. All season long, the kicks of Fred Cox and Mike Eischeid were covered by a band of dedicated zealots whose goal was all-out team football with little or no regard for personal safety. For years, the Vikings have been known for their tenacious defense. In 1974, they may have given up some yards between the goal lines, but they also permitted only 21 touchdowns, the fewest in the entire NFL. Minnesota's defense is a big play defense, and big plays begin with pressure from the front four, always a Viking strong point. Former guard and linebacker Doug Sutherland gave added strength to the defensive line, while young hustlers like Dave Boone, number 71, joined in with the old pros. Veterans like benchwarmer Bob Lertzema, number 75, and the Minnesota strongman Gary Larson, number 77. The consecutive game streak by right defensive end Jim Marshall, number 70, is the longest ever for a defensive player. At left end, Carl Eller was a Pro Bowl participant for the 6th time, as was right tackle Alan Page, number 88, the Vikings' king of quickness. The Vikings allowed only 8 touchdown passes, the fewest in the league. And pressure from the line benefited backs like free safety Paul Krause, whose 64 lifetime interceptions rank 3rd on the all-time list. And rookie cornerback Jackie Wallace, number 25. Strong safety Terry Brown, number 24. Versatile Jeff Wright, number 23. And a team leader with 6 interceptions, Nate Wright, number 43. But a good defensive back is not just a ball hawk. He's at least equal parts desire, along with the ability to hit. The men in the middle are the linebackers. And number 59, rookie Matt Blair, played like a future star on the outside. Amos Martin, number 55, came up with 3 interceptions. But the outside was patrolled primarily by Wally Hilgenberg, number 58, and Roy Winston, number 60. While the middle was the exclusive domain of Jeff Seaman, number 50. All departments of the Minnesota defense worked together, like the components in an intricate machine. And despite key injuries, the Vikings once again played championship-style defense. While the defense allowed the fewest touchdowns, the offense scored the most in the NFC. Fran Tarkenton led the conference in passing yardage, thanks in good part to his protectors: Ron Yeary, Charles Goodrum, Grady Alderman, Ed White, Andy Maurer, Milt Sunday, and Mick Tinglehawk. Number 83, Stu Voigt, was among the most reliable receivers with 32 catches and 5 touchdowns, while deep threat John Gilliam made the Pro Bowl for the 3rd time. At the other wide receiver spot was unheralded second-year man Jim Lash, whose go-all-out style made him an instant favorite. At running back, the quick feet of Oscar Reed gave way to the old pro savvy of Dave Osborne, who rolled up more than 700 yards running and receiving, and opened the way for the fantastic season of number 44, Chuck Foreman. 199 carries for 777 yards, a club record 53 receptions for 586 more yards, a league-leading 15 touchdowns. Chuck Foreman, halfback, fullback, wingback, flanker back, and one of the more skillful all-around offensive players in the game. With 3 games to go in the regular season, the Minnesota Vikings got together and decided to win all the rest. Against the New Orleans Saints in Week 12, Fran Tarkenton and his receivers put on quite a show. 20 completions and 29 tries for more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tight end Stu Voigt caught 7 passes, and the wide receivers Jim Lash and John Gilliam each accounted for more than 100 yards as the Vikings rolled over the Saints 29-9 and once again locked up the championship of the NFC's Central Division. With the division title clinched, Bud Grant chose number 17, Bob Berry, to start against his former teammates, the Atlanta Falcons. 10-year veteran Dave Osborne caught and ran for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Vikings won 23-10. In the season's final week in Kansas City, Bob Berry hit on 11 of 12 passes, including 2 touchdowns, one of them to number 49, Ed Marinaro. Fran Tarkenton also passed for 2 scores, both to rookie wide receiver Sam McCullum, as the Vikings bombed the Chiefs 35-15. And finally, it was time for the playoffs. The first round of the NFC playoffs, the Central champion Vikings against the Eastern champion St. Louis Cardinals. The score was tied at 7, but in the second half, the Purple Marauders took over the game. Within a 60-second span of the third quarter, the Viking defense turned the game in Minnesota's favor. An interception by Jeff Wright set up a field goal, and then on the next series, what looked at first like a simple loss of yardage for the Cardinals turned into the game breaker for Nate Wright and the Vikings. It was then just a matter of Fran Tarkenton and the offense putting on the frosting. For Bud Grant and the Vikings, the difference between 4 days before Christmas and 4 days after Christmas was the difference between a divisional playoff and a conference championship. Against the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship game, Fran Tarkenton and the Vikings drew first blood with a touchdown pass to Jim Lash. Minnesota led 7-3 at the half, but in the second half, some strange things happened. Harold Jackson was on his way to a touchdown when number 23, Jeff Wright, shoved him out, just inches short of the Minnesota goal line. One of the year's most important plays occurred when Alan Page spotted movement on the left side of the Ram offensive line. The crucial offsides penalty against the Rams forced James Harris into a passing situation on third down, and Jackie Wallace managed to deflect the ball to Wally Hilgenberg. Instead of the Rams going ahead 10-7, the Vikings took the ball and started back the other way. When Dave Osborne culminated the drive by going up and over, the Minnesota lead became 14-3, and it was then just a matter of time for the Vikings. There are many reasons why the 1974 Minnesota Vikings became one of the very few teams ever to successfully defend a conference championship. And those many reasons will live on in the minds and memories of the pro football faithful.